Good morning. It's the day after election day. That's all I remember. I was up all night struggling through it, and now I'm making the time to get back down to business as such. You may have noticed that I posted the agenda for 11/8 through the 15th. Today is the 6th. I'm going to now do a video connected to the agenda to flesh it out and with a couple of other links that go with it so that you have two modules this time. One would be I guess you could call a paper document agenda, and then a video, which is what I'm doing now, which will take you flesh out what the agenda is saying, what it's all about. So that's where we are, and we'll just move on because everybody's busy. Everybody's busy. I know that. Okie doke. I'm calling this agenda uh, a different tilt. And there's a reason for that because I've been in and out with the case studies, as you know, for numbers of reasons. I don't think that the case study book aligns itself all that well with change issues, although there are a couple here and there that I trip across that I want to comment to. And this one, this particular video, in a certain sense, is redundant, but I'm really beginning to learn that you can't hear enough of some of the things I have to say uh, for any number of reasons. So you see the goal. So it's called a different tilt. You'll also see that um, for the moment, I haven't put the YouTube link up because I haven't edited it in. I will after this gets loaded into the computer. But you'll have that on here as well. Here are my goals. I'm going to skip the second goal. It'll be clear why in a second. So we have some housekeeping things. I have one premise I want to, actually two that I want to speak to. And then I was going to debrief tomorrow night, but that would have meant I would have had to wait till the 8th to do this video. So I thought it was more important to get the video out than for me to debrief that. This debriefing is all important. Reflection is probably a more apt word that I would love to do reflection with you folks, but I can't do that because I can't pull you in together for another synchronous class to reflect on what you did Thursday night. So we're going to skip over that. So watch me eliminate that. And poof, it's gone. We're going to take a look at that case study summary. And I'm going to reiterate Priscilla Wohlstetter for numbers of reasons. And then we're going to really kind of stay with that as well as identify the discussion question. The discussion question's already posted too. I think it's posted yesterday, and it's due. And if it isn't open, just let me know because sometimes I tend to forget to open them, as many of you have reminded me. And that'll bring us over to next Friday. And that's how I'm trying to move and keep in front of things. I'm just jumping down for a second to show you the discussion question. Don't mind all this other gobbledygook. And there it is in yellow, because it's really the discussion question is related to this video. Can't answer the discussion question very well unless you watch this video. And here it is. It's an occupational hazard. The school stakeholders are part of any number of committees to exchange and to dialogue how to solve an issue or initiative. Many, maybe most of the times, there are ineffective efforts that do not bring about their desired change. Lots of reasons for that. I've done considerable research on this. It doesn't mean the process is wrong. What it means is the implementation of the process is haphazard and half-baked. And that's why people say, see, it failed. It's not because it was poorly put together. It was the implementation that was not done well. And I think you're beginning to see that in the strategic plan formulation. And I'll come back to that in a moment. So let's continue this question. maybe most of the times, they're ineffective efforts that do not bring about their desired change. Using Wohlstetter, that's Priscilla Wohlstetter. I have spoken about her before in previous videos, I think early on in our time together, but I would guess that perhaps uh, all the things you have had to learn that it may have slipped through the cracks or the crevices of your brain. So using Wohlstetter or another model that you prefer, maybe there's something in Fullen or somewhere else you may want to take a look. I want you to assess your own experiences when a district or a school attempted to use SDM, which is a short cut for shared decision making. What were the pluses, the minuses? What are you wondering about? That is, that you didn't know that you didn't know. All of you have been on committees or have led committees or suffered through committees or all three of those things in school systems. Again, usually because the Wohlstetter model variables, factors, ingredients aren't given all the attention that it deserves. So once I go through that in the course of this video, you should be able to now go back and use Wohlstetter or another model if you find something that you prefer instead of Wohlstetter to assess why the committee worked or why it didn't work. Sometimes they work, not as often as when they don't work, but that is true. Enough said. So that's the discussion question. It is already posted up, and I really want to hear what you have to say about that. And by all means, tell me what you think are the interesting, effective things that you think have happened. Sometimes you do get that. All right, so that's the discussion question, and those are the goals. I guess I should add that other smart goal there. So I just found out about this the other day, November 8th cutoff. I'll come to that in a moment. Okie doke. So I don't know what the module number is, but it will be in its own module. It will be a video, and it's based on North House that begin on pages 132 to really the end of the book as such. The title of that case study is, stand by, School Improvement. Well, actually, it's 16.1. It's on page 135, and the title of the case study is School Improvement Team Troubles. Sounds like a soap opera, and often it is as such. So those are the materials we're going to be using, and here are the content premises. It looks longer, it looks more than it actually is. I'll explain that in a second. So here we go. Now, as far as housekeeping is concerned, first point would be A. I just found out from Dr. Smith a couple of days ago that the 8th, that is to say, this coming Friday, is the last day to withdraw without losing money. Well, maybe I don't exactly know how that works, but I hope that you don't. But if you have intended to drop out of the course at this late date, you have to do it by this coming Friday, just to save some money or save some kind of aggravation that you'll no doubt have later. B is a little kind of tricky in a certain sense. I haven't put this into Canvas yet. I'm going to, only because the syllabus calls for it. If you notice, there were 3 ways to be graded for this course. One was the discussion questions. And again, you folks are nailing the discussion questions, notwithstanding the fact that I'm behind in responding to them. But you're all nailing them, and that's whatever that point value is worth, you're all doing just fine with that. The third thing was the strategic plan. As I was saying to someone else yesterday in a Zoom meeting, I'm really glad that people are starting to make dates with me, because I'm understanding some things that the class students may have missed. And usually the reason for that is they haven't looked at all my videos carefully. But other times it's because I didn't communicate properly, as I have to confess, as any good teacher/professor would do. Sometimes I'm not explaining it as well as I should be. And so, um, well, again, the strategic plan is due on the 5th. I thought the 5th was the last day of class, and I'm thinking maybe it is not. It might be the 12th. If anybody can tell me when the last day of class is, I'd appreciate it. Or I'll just figure it out before the 5th. Well, at any rate, the 5th is the last synchronous date. As you know, the date we have is coming tomorrow. Um, I guess I should talk about that maybe, too. No, just know I'm going to meet you at 6:45 on Thursday, tomorrow. Although the Zoom session starts at 6:30 because Zoom doesn't know how to put in the 15-minute in between the zeros. So I start at 6:45, but it looks like it starts at 6:30, which is not the case. And there's a middle assignment. I think it's worth 10 points, and that's called a SMART goal. Now, I would bet what's left of the mortgage on my house. You all know what a SMART goal is. I'm not sure why the syllabus calls a reminder of that. But what I just want to do real fast is say that you should send me, I'll make room for it in the Canvas. You should send me 2 or 3 SMART goals connected to your strategies for the strategic plan. Now, SMART, I'm sure you all know, is an acronym. And each of the letters stands for something else. So here it is. S means specific. M means measurable. A is achievable. R is realistic. I'm not sure how much difference there is between achievable and realistic, but that's how it's been set up. T is for targeted, and that's what SMART stands for: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and targeted. Let me give you an example. A SMART goal I would offer up for a strategy that all of you have to do anyway is identify what your information gathering strategies would be. And I said I needed at least 2 or 3, if I remember right. I think 3. And so let's make a SMART goal about, and I'll talk more about this Thursday night too. Let's make a SMART goal for each strategy. So here we go. Ready? I'm doing this off the top of my bald head. Participants will complete, there's your specific, a SWOT analysis that identifies, there's your measurable. I'm sorry, that would be your targeted. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Participants will construct one more time. Participants will complete a SWOT analysis. There's another acronym: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That identifies 2 strengths, 2 weaknesses, 2 threats, and 2 opportunities connected to their assessment of the school change issue in mind. That's a little wordy. And by successfully, I mean 100% of the time, because really the criteria is pretty low. You're going to give me 2 for each box. So I need a total of 8. And that's targeted. It's a realistic goal. Certainly is achievable, and you're measuring it by the number, which is 2. And the specific is the activity itself. So remember, I tend to think that folks are jumping over that first box in the template. That's about your choosing what strategies, plural, 3, a minimum, you're going to use to gather information. Understand, he shouted, and I will say this again Thursday. Understand that I'm not expecting you to actually do a survey. I don't expect you to do that. Nothing like that at all. I do expect you to say that you're going to do it, and I do expect you to do it between your ears. So you could do a SWOT analysis of the issue that you're concerned about. And maybe we'll do some of that Thursday too, if somebody asks me. And that's what a SMART goal looks like. So I want it'd be two. This way, it's an even number, and upload it to the space I haven't created yet in Canvas. Uh, you can turn that in uh, week before the strategic plan is due. That's what you need to do. So the two housekeeping issues I wanted to point out was that this coming Friday is the last day to withdraw, and that I need two SMART goals from you based on your strategic plan. Uh, that's it. And I'm going to look at them. If I think you need to fix it, I will tell you that, but I can't imagine anybody not knowing how to do that. Okay. So I'm going to skip this two now because I can't debrief something I haven't done yet. I can't future for that. Well, I haven't been through it yet. So I'm going to skip over that one. I'll do that at the end of next week, around the 15th. I'll debrief that only in my own head, not from you folks, unless you have the time to perhaps drop me an email about how you thought that went. That would be interested to know that, quite frankly. And I want to spend some time on Wohlstetter and this premise of shared decision making, which is identified loosely in the leadership case studies book that we have used on and off throughout the semester. A couple of problems. One is the shared decision making is a way too loose a term, and it's understood by different people in different ways. And what I'm thinking of is, believe it or not, an actual um, regulation. If you look at Commissioner's Regulations 100.11, I think, you will see a regulation that comes out of state education that says every school building and every school district will have a shared decision-making team with bylaws and processes and the whole bit. And they're supposed to be operational. And about every 2 years, the state education department was charged with expecting an evaluation of that, how well the committee was working, the group was working, for the commissioners or her designees to review to see how well you were doing it. I don't know of anybody who does that, unfortunately. No, I do know of a few who do. I take that back. I know of a couple, but not very many, because there isn't any shared decision-making police in Albany. If you go to the state education department, you see a huge collection of beautiful old buildings on a campus. And if you walk through the campus, it's like walking through a ghost town. Most of the places, the buildings are closed up, boarded up in some cases, empty, heat turned off. It's right. There are offices open, assuredly, but they're nowhere near what they have you think that it is. It's kind of like an empty monument in so many respects. And they haven't got enough people to go check on 700 and something school districts from Montauk to Buffalo to see whether they're practicing shared decision making. There's too many other important things to do. That's the textbook legal issue definition of shared decision making. But if you ask a principal or a superintendent, they'll delude themselves, or they will be attempting to have committees set up to either do what I call think tank activities, something along the lines of what you're doing in this class, or more specific to working with specific some of this issue. And I think two people, I'm not sure if it was this class or another course I'm teaching, we're talking about their buildings or their districts rather coming up with cell phone policy. Thorny issue, tough issue to solve, very tough issue to solve. It sounds like the state's coming down with something that's going to be pretty strict about it. I have my opinions about it, but how you formulate that policy and those ideas. And by the way, all policies suggestions go to the board. The principal of the high school or the middle school doesn't make the policy. She may recommend a policy or some guidelines, but She's not the person who authorizes the policy. That's strictly the Board of Education with the superintendent's advice. That's it. But there are committees in place right now that are beginning to play with with the cell phone cell phone usage, and it's interesting how that's going to evolve and how different buildings have and districts have approached it, rightly or wrongly. That's a committee that's often made up of what I call stakeholders. The stakeholders aren't just teachers. It could be the custodian. I had my custodian on my committee. It could be the nurse. Should be the nurse sometimes. Um, could be Paris. Could be the assistant principal. Could be any number of people, and obviously parents and community members, business members. And one part of me wants to say that the more the merrier. However, and this is a big however, big yes, but uh, you don't want a committee that's so huge and so unwieldy, so clumsy that they really can't get anything done either. So you have to kind of be careful about keeping it roughly around 10 to a dozen, and that's just a experiential advice rather than anything done by research. So you can see that bullet there. First of all, that's based on Priscilla Wolstetter and Susan Ehrman, I believe her name was, Morman, Mohrman, and a couple of other people who back in the 90s really rolled up their sleeves and got very invested in research about how shared decision making, think tanks, school improvement groups operated all around the world. Curiously, they found some very effective groups, I'm not sure why, in Australia. So they went to Australia there, watched what was going on over there. When they came back to the United States and Canada, they studied a lot of the school-based groups or district-based groups and came up with the same conclusion, namely that they weren't very effective. So they tried to identify ones that were effective so that they can begin to build up a list of what any textbook committee, any cell phone policy committee, any school busing committee would have to have in their portfolio and in their toolkit to be effective. Okay. And my grandson is calling me. Give me a second. I'm sorry. No, I'm not gonna talk to him because I'm talking to you. Yes, I am. No, I can't. He's already hung up. All right. So, but so many have not worked. Now I'm going to use a funny word with you now, but actually people use this when they do an assessment of any kind of participatory group, and that would be called an autopsy. Now, I don't know if you watch all those CSI series, or if you there was an old show with Jack Klugman. I forgot. I watch it middle of the night sometimes. Who also did autopsies on victims of crime and so on. And a lot of shows do things like that, and certainly lots of novels do too. So an autopsy is finding out why the patient died, what happened to the patient. So when shared decision making, as it often does, when it fails, what most that are offered was a yardstick to help you filter out what worked and what didn't work, what was there and what was not there. And that brings us over to 7 variables. And that's a nerd doctor EDD group name word. You can call it factors, you can call it ingredients, whatever works for you. Activities, behaviors, thoughts that must exist in order for you to uh, have a successful group of any kind. I will tell you that when I'm charged, I just did this yesterday, when I'm charged with facilitating a group as a consultant, and when I was, an actual district-based and building-based administrator, I always made sure that these 7 variables were there. Because I knew if they weren't there, the group was doomed. And so I will tell you that they have worked for me when I made sure they were all there. Now, here comes the conversation. You'll see that these are arranged in the order of their strength. So because I highlighted A, power, I'm telling you that's typically the most important variable that's got to be identified and in place for a group to work properly. All the way down to resources. I'm sorry, there's another one. What's wrong with me? Oh, there it is. On the next page. I'm sorry. And that would be rewards. And here I am explaining them to you. And you should sort of file them so that you have a handle on what they mean and how they should be operating. Even though I may have talked about this a couple of videos back, they really become important as you begin to play with your strategic plan. And the most powerful one is power. Now, by power, we mean boundaries. That is to say, what you can do and what you can't do, what you've been charged with doing. Some years ago, I was charged with running a group of parent stakeholders and bus drivers and transportation department leader to formulate busing school busing problem issues and timing, really schedules. I may have mentioned it before to you, and I have to tell you that talk about creativity. Holy heavens, you needed to be creative to really solve the issues that were going on there. So at any rate, I was real clear. I said the superintendent charged me with doing the running this group, and made it clear that I was going to come up with a recommendation, okay, to forward to the superintendent for his review, and then on his choice to forward it to the board because they had the last word, as boards always do. And when it comes to policy, it was as clear as the day is as a day. And by golly, some folks chafed, didn't like it in the beginning, but as we came through all the different processes, something like you're doing in your strategic plan development, they began to drink the Kool-Aid and began to realize that it was good that they knew what they could do and what they couldn't do. Now, I can give you a reverse on that. I think maybe I've mentioned it to you. It doesn't really have much to do with change as such. When I first became a principal, I had an opening. Not too many openings in those days. Actually, it was second year as a principal. And I convened a group of advisory people, my union reps, teachers, obviously, some parents. I think I included my secretaries for sure. I used to have one of them at least. And what I did was I pulled resumes of people whom I thought were really, really solid and could contribute to the school. And we interviewed them one by one. But before we started the interviews, I said to the group, I said, here's the story. We're going to interview these people. We're going to knock it down to 3 and maybe knock it down to 2, maybe, and ultimately knock it down to 1 and 2. But I will tell you that you're advising me. If this is my call, which wasn't altogether true because that's still the board's call in the end. But I'm going to make the recommendation to the principal, so it's got to go through me. I hope that everybody's clear on that. So we did that. Everybody kind of shook their heads, and we come through the seven resumes, and they were terrific people. One woman came in, and I had pulled this resume because I had her as a student when I was a professor of social studies at Dowling, and the person was a star, just an absolute star. So she comes in and just knocks everybody down. It's like, why even continue? This is the winner. But we went through the entire process, and when we got to the end, unanimous. Everyone said Michelle is the person we're going to pick. And I was fine with that. I had no quarrel with that at all. And then a little light went off in the back of my head. I said, hey, we also have to pick a second person. So I went around the room again, and it wasn't unanimity about who the second person might be. So we came around was sort of split between two people, and I was more disposed towards one versus the other, although the other one was fine too. I said, hey, well, I have to say, the number two in my head, I'm pointing at my chest, but in my head was person X. Is everybody clear on that? Yes. Okay, thank you very much. It took a whole day to do this. I run to my phone, I call up the first person. Congratulations. When can you start? And the person says to me, sorry, Dr. B, I'm taking a position in another school district. And I was like devastated. I said, are you sure we can, and I went through, used all my charming persuasive skills. And she was very polite. She says, no, I'm going to turn her sister worked there too. So she had the reason to go there too. And to this day, I don't know how well she did. I'm sure she became a superintendent someplace. That's how powerful she was. So now I have no number one. So I went back to my list and I looked, okay, this is my number two. I got up. First person I went to was a union rep. We had enormous respect for each other. I said, this is what happened. This is my second choice. I'm going with that one. He goes, that's great, Rich. You had told us in advance how this was going to work. And I walked all over the building and called up some people who were parents. This is the person whom we're going with. And then I called the person who was, climbing through the phone. She was so happy about it. One of the teachers, I guess, didn't hear me when I said I get the call, and she didn't. I get well. She didn't think that was the right choice. I'll leave it at that. And she got a little huffy with me about it. So I mean, we exchanged some points of view. I listened to her, but I wasn't going to change my mind about it because I already knew that we had come through all the process before. And it got a little cranky. Not on my part, on her part. She was not happy at all. She went into the faculty room and jumped up and down a little bit. And I'm told that the building rep who was there said, you heard what the man said. The man said he makes the choice. He was taking our input, which was more than had ever happened in that building before that. And that's how it's going to be. And everybody backed off. That's a power boundary. Therefore, every group needs to have specific a charge or charges about what their tasks are and what they are not. Makes for nice clarity. Every group has to have a knowledge base. This comes into play a lot of times when you have parents on the team who don't know some of the ins and outs of how a school is operating. We want their perspective, but we don't necessarily want them to be able to make schedules for us, as an example. Uh, they need to know how to decision make. They need to know how to be creative. They need to know uh, how to develop a hypothesis sometimes. And these things may not be within their wheelhouse. And so you can't have I just read an article that said that you can put a set of monkeys in front of a typewriters or keyboards and have them type for 1 million years, and they'll never be able to uh, write a Shakespeare script. Makes sense. Uh, and that's really what we're talking about. And if the group doesn't have the skill set, and there's two kinds of skill sets here, the skills of how a school operates and creates and thinks together. And the other piece of it is how would they know how to I'm being a wise guy, but it's a word most of you I think know, and it would be going to get a phone call in a minute. I just realized it. Oh my heavens. I'm going to have to shut you down and come back to you if he calls when he's supposed to. Or at the Zoom. Okay, I'll come back to you when this is done. See you in a little bit.